thinking about these dollar signs. I left them out behind. Used to regret that shit 1,000 times. Now I'm down to ride for mine, and I can care less what you say. Step outside the circle, shit, I share less of this do say. Bitch, fuck you, I do mate. I ain't sleep in 2 days. You turn up on a Tuesday, bitch, every day my crew day. You do say, but don't say. You don't snitch, I won't say.
What's up, everybody? Salute, salute, salute. Yo, it's getting crazier and crazier, man. This is definitely going to be something that we never expected. Um, this is definitely going to be shocking constantly as we hear these the details slowly just develop. It's getting crazier and crazier. So from now, what I'm watching several different outlets. Shout them out very shortly, but um, I try to stay on top of things as far as like just being aware. Like if something happening, of course you want to know about it. Some people call it being nosy. I just call it being aware. And one thing that I've been paying attention to is that when it comes to like when we cover things in black media, when we cover things, Shade Room, shout out to my boy Harlem Legend, shout out to Wade Eye Black, shout out to all black media outlets, okay? Black Compass, shout out to Cola, shout out to all of these people, Tony Bro, Piper Boy Williams, Jay Black, but just black media in general. When we tend to cover things right with black media, I noticed that the world will just look from the outside and not really get too involved in it. When we see white media start to cover things, right? When white media start covering things, then that's when you notice the world starts paying attention now. Now the average Karen and Jennifer, Don and Stevie is talking about what we're talking about on the street when they go outside, when they're at work. So now the conversation has changed. Okay, black media had it at first, white media picked it up as well, and now it's just slowly picking up just every day. Okay, I'm seeing different outlets that normally wouldn't even talk about this dude or anything like him. They're talking about it, and of course they're making a ton of money off of it. All right, they're gonna make a ton of money off of him just for the sake of it, because right now, honestly, he's more in the news and more talked about than President Trump. They're talking about Puffy more than they talking about Kamala. They're talking about Puffy more than they talking about Hezbollah, Israel. They're talking about Puffy more than anything. He is the number one trend. He is the trend right now, and it is what it is. Diddy or no Diddy, he's the trend right now. You heard? So I just wanted to talk about that, and also I said this before, but I don't know if everybody caught it. There's a team of lawyers right now, right? There's a team of lawyers that are in the UK right now that are searching for new victims. I know that sounds crazy, but they're saying that he stayed in the UK for several years, back and forth between the UK, New York, UK, Miami, and there are victims who have contacted several lawyers in the States from the UK, and these victims are being investigated and thoroughly vetted to see if their information or what they present is good enough, if it corroborates, if everything comes together. And it's just crazy to think that this dude could be possibly going to trial 2025, 2026 for this indictment. And then you got to think it's still an open investigation. It's still ongoing. So there's still other people they're looking for, as far as victims. There's still other people they're looking for as far as co-conspirators and culprits. They're looking for people to take down with him as well. And one thing I want y'all to understand in this whole process, right? Don't never get confused by everything that the media says. One thing that I want to put y'all on to, right? That a lot of people don't pay attention to. Always understand when it comes to the federal government, information is more valuable to them than anything. Why is that? Because with information, you can get money. With information, you can make people do what you want them to do. Why do you think they're so big on these tapes? Why do you think they're so big on snatching whatever they can snatch from Puffy, recordings and all kind of stuff? So yeah, it's real. But check this out though. Piers Morgan has been getting all the interviews. All the interviews. Let's check this out.
He would have been dead already.
But Chuck, I mean, you might have said the same thing about Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, you didn't wait for the best part yet. He's going to be indicted for the murder of Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G.
The shocking allegations leveled at Sean Diddy.
Do you hear that? The man said he is going to be indicted for the murder of Tupac and Biggie. Do you understand how crazy that is? You trying to tell me that this man has an indictment right now for sex, trafficking, SA, everything. He has all of these charges on the indictment, and none of those charges have murder on it. That's the part that y'all got to pay attention to.
Combs have burst the floodgates on salacious claims about an industry many people believe harbored a monster. Understandably, the internet's ablaze with claims about these events and whether other powerful figures were involved too. Well, last week I interviewed Jaguar Wright, a singer-songwriter who's made claims about Diddy for years. Those claims had already received a lot of attention in the media across many platforms for many years. And that's the thing about platforms. The reality of the modern world is that pretty much everyone has a platform as long as they have something to say that other people want to hear. That's why we invited her on to be interviewed. The people making these claims have an audience with or without shows like mine. Well, Jaguar Wright unexpectedly made several serious allegations about Jay-Z and Beyonce during that interview.
They didn't like that.
As I said in the moment, they were not present to respond or defend themselves, but now they have. Their lawyers contacted us to say that those claims were totally false and have no basis in fact.
Wow.
And we've therefore complied with the legal request to cut them from the original interview. Editing interviews is not something we do lightly at a show called Uncensored. But, like the proverbial cries of fire in a crowded theatre, there are legal limits on us too. And we apologise to Jay-Z and Beyonce. Well, now Sean Diddy Combs is reportedly putting together an O.J. Simpson-style legal dream team to defend federal charges on sexual assault.
So Jay-Z and Beyonce's legal team reached out to Piers Morgan and told Piers Morgan that they would like her part edited out of the show because her part basically is a lie and the claims that she said were false. But we'll see. Is Jay-Z guilty of anything closely remote to what P. Diddy is guilty of? Is Beyonce a culprit? We'll see. We'll see.
Sex trafficking and racketeering. Certainly looks like he's going to need all the legal help he can get. Well, last week, Houston attorney Tony Busby held a bombshell press conference to announce he's representing 120 alleged victims of the rap mogul.
120.
New and disturbing details.
When you talk about the ages of the victims when the conduct occurred, it's shocking. Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old. We have one who was 15.
9 years old?
25 of the 120 individuals who are plaintiffs in these cases were minors at the time of the acts complained of.
In a moment, my panel will dissect and debate all of the latest developments, shocking developments. But first, I'm joined by attorney Tony Busby, who you just heard speaking there. Mr. Busby, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I want to read you a statement overnight from Janice Smalls Combs, who is Diddy's mother. And it came by her lawyer, Natalie Figures. It says this: I come to you today as a mother that is devastated and profoundly saddened by the allegations made against my son, Sean Combs. It is heartbreaking to see my son judged not for the truth, but for a narrative created out of lies. To bear witness what seems to be like a public lynching of my son before he's had the opportunity to prove his innocence is a pain too unbearable to put into words. Just first of all, your reaction to that statement from his mother.
That's exactly what I would expect the mother to say. You know, these allegations are shocking. These allegations are egregious. And that's why they have court systems, because we will ferret this out in the court system. We intend to prove our cases. Obviously, we're not going to prove our cases at a press conference. And, you know, with all due respect to her, I've talked to these victims, and I believe them. So that's exactly what I would expect his mother to say.
Your hotline took 12,000 calls in 24 hours, including many new allegations involving minors. At the moment, there's no class action. Each case you take will be represented individually. But just the fact you've got 120 already that you're repping, and you're getting so many calls, what does that tell you about the scale of all this?
Well, I know that's reported 12,000 calls in a 24-hour period. And of course, that's true. I want people to know that obviously that's not 12,000 people claiming to be victimized by Sean Combs. That's, a large portion of those people calling with, words of support. Others were prank calls and crank calls, as you might imagine, in this kind of situation. What's most interesting to me and what's most helpful are people that call that have bits of information, bits of evidence, video, perhaps pictures. And then, of course, we're particularly interested in people that had interaction with Mr. Combs and what they say happened to them and victims. But, I was trying to get my head around the fact that, we're talking about thousands of people calling and hundreds of alleged victims. And how could that possibly be the case? But, when you put that in context and you think about conduct that allegedly occurred over a 25-year period, in multiple different venues, parties every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And the same MO each time has been alleged. Typically, it involves some sort of illicit substance placed in someone's drink, and then that individual is coerced or taken advantage of. And that's kind of the overarching theme here. And so a lot of these calls, on first glance, you say, my goodness, that's just impossible that many people would call with information or who have been victimized.
Yeah, because it just like the number is like really overwhelming to hear that number. Like what, 100 and he got 120 victims. Now it's at 150, 160 plus, and then they saying they had over 3,000 calls. That's insane. That's insane. It's insane.
But when you look at it in the context of a long period of time in a particular modus operandi, it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, its numbers are staggering. You've also said that there are other big names that will come out in relation to these charges. He says the day will come, you said this, when you start naming names. When will that day be, and how big are these names that we're talking about?
Yeah, people are very interested in that, of course. That comment has been repeated back to me, as you might imagine, many times. And people are, waiting with bated breath, hoping that, I'm going to name these big celebrity names. But I can tell you this, I look at it in this context. If you attended one of these events, and we're talking about, we've heard about the white party and the freak offs and the after parties, but there's also, impromptu parties at studios, after parties from concerts, album release parties, hotel parties. I mean, the list goes on and on. But in my view, if you attended those and you saw or knew that somebody was being given drugs,
imagine how many people attended those parties,
and you sat by and either participated in some of this activity or encouraged this activity or allowed it to go on and helped cover it up, or were in the room while it was happening and said nothing and did not intervene, and perhaps attended more of these parties knowing that this type of conduct was going to occur. It's my view, that may not be the criminal justice system's view, but it's certainly my view that you're complicit. And we intend to name people in these lawsuits. We're not going to do it in interviews. We're not going to do it, without doing our due diligence, because obviously, these types of allegations are very hurtful to people if they're not true, and very hurtful, frankly, if they are true. But if they're true, you shouldn't have been in the room and you shouldn't have been participating. So I anticipate that we're going to start filing lawsuits, and it may not be big names at first, but we have a long list of names. And you might imagine in situations like this, that when a victim tells us that this person was in the room or this person participated, we want to do as much due diligence as humanly possible before we file that case. Because in the United States, in almost every state, public filings are in fact public. And, you know, when you name somebody in a lawsuit,
Facts.
the press is going to pick it up, and we're aware of that. So we're going to make sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's. And
Okay, so I'm giving him that lawyer that's talking right now. That's Tony Busby, Houston, Texas, law firm. This is the dude that they saying that this dude is so official. He doesn't even charge the clients up front. He doesn't charge the clients up front. He takes his money, he puts it into investigation, spends millions of dollars on investigation, and then at the end, he gets his money at the end when he wins for you. But they say the dude is a beast, man. They say he's a beast. And to have somebody like that going after you, it's like, what? Damn, I don't want no problems. To have somebody like that going after you, do you really want issues with somebody like that? And then on top of it, he got a whole team of lawyers in the United Kingdom that's interviewing more victims. Man, it's only gonna get crazier, man. It's only gonna get crazier, man.
expect that there will be some people named in these lawsuits that will raise some eyebrows.
Right. I mean, how big an eyebrow raise are we talking about? Because you've been hearing a lot of names, presumably, in the process of all these calls coming in. And you're a pretty smart lawyer, so you can probably work out the wheat from the chaff in terms of legitimate, plausible claims here in terms of victims. I mean, are we talking about names as big as Diddy, potentially?
I expect so. I expect so. You know, obviously those are the names that people are interested in, but I've tried to make sure people focus also on corporate entities, to include banks and hotels and perhaps even pharmaceutical entities that were maybe not directly involved, but were certainly benefiting and profiting from this kind of activity. You know, those I'm interested in as well. But you know, we've seen all over social media the pictures and video of all the various individuals that attended these parties. And, you know, you know, look, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night.
Do you hear what he's saying? We know who was at these parties. We're on social media. We're on social media. We know who attended these parties. We're watching the videos. You know, I'm not dumb. I wasn't born last night. Yo, this is not. It's not a good look, man. Like, this is going to be really bad. And like he said, these celebrities are of the same stature as Diddy, and some of these celebrities that they're going to be looking for is of a bigger stature than Diddy. So now let me tell you this. Tony Busby said basically within the next 30 days, they're going to be releasing another press conference with a list of all the individuals that they need questioned and they're looking for. Yes, 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 yes. Because what's going to happen is when people even get any type of wind that something is happening where they're going to be trying to question to something, people are going to start running. People are going to start running. We're going to be looking like, what's going on in the music industry? Mm-hmm. Watch what I tell you. Watch what I tell you.
I know that at these types of parties, things go on. I know that there's, you know, sex is, you know, occurs out in the open and things like that. That's not illegal and that's not properly actionable. What I'm focused on is when people are lured to these parties, coerced at these parties, given illicit drugs at this party without their knowledge, and then they're taken advantage of. And people in the room know this is happening and participate in it and do nothing about it and then tacitly cover it up.
Right.
Those people, in my mind, are just as liable as the individuals who engage directly in the activity.
And of the 120 cases you've taken on so far, what percentage involve minors? And what is the split of male and female alleged victims?
It's about 25 out of the 120, but as you might imagine, since we did the press conference, that number is growing.
Sorry, 25 minors or?
25 minors out
Wow.
of the 120 clients. Yes, sir. You know, and the minors, they kind of fall into two categories. One would be the category of individuals with stars in their eyes trying to break into the entertainment industry who were either scouted or somehow found their way to a studio or to a location where they were being screened and either the allegation is Mr. Combs himself or those around him involved took advantage of these people in some sort of quid pro quo to try to make them a star. And, you know, in some of these cases, it was the parents who were essentially handing their child off to a group of people that they trusted and who they thought were going to make their child a star. That's one group. The second group of minors would be individuals who were recruited, whether it be in a hotel lobby, whether it be at a show from the crowd, invited to a after concert party that made its way to a hotel, whether it be to some of the parties that we all heard about. They went there at age 16. You know, there's a few that, for instance, attended a party in the Hamptons and they were only 16 and taken advantage of there. So, you know, it pretty runs the gamut. But, you know, it's the allegations obviously are very egregious. We have to be very careful and responsible about how we pursue these. These are individual cases, will be filed. Each case will live or die on its own merits. Each case will have one or more defendants. In some cases, they'll all, you know, they may be different. Some will be filed in New York. I would expect most of them will be filed because New York has a statute of limitations that's pretty generous. New York State has recognized that these types of allegations, it takes people a long time to come forward. It takes a lot of courage to come forward. So New York has recognized that. I think California has too. So I would expect most of these cases will be filed in those two states. And we're gonna pursue these cases aggressively. And the reason for the press conference is because, you know, I wanted to make sure that we, you know, Sean Combs obviously has been arrested. He's been indicted. Bail has been denied, I think, 3 times at this point. You know, I don't expect he's going anywhere. We want to make sure that every entity and every individual who had some role in this, that, you know, that we examine that, and if the law supports it, that we bring them in and make them a part of this case as well.
And just on that second point about the gender split here, there have been lots of rumors that it's not just women or girls who've been involved in being abused here, but also young boys and young men. Can you clarify how many of your own cases are male?
I would say that number is 50-50. According to the client group.
This is bad, y'all.
It looks like when you try to, if you were to graph it, the number of males increased dramatically after 2015. You know, we've looked at this client group and vetted it in so many different ways, as you would expect, that you can see a trend that the number of males involved increased somewhere around the 2015 timeframe.
Yo, they said that the number of male victims increased around 2015. So they're paying attention. What they're doing is they're paying attention to the actual timeline of everything, all the way down to how, you know, obviously how many victims, whether it was more male, more female, more the fact that he increased in his male victims in 2015, in the last 9 years, he has more male victims is crazy. Like, that's insane. Like, why? But we're gonna go down a rabbit hole, y'all. Feel free if y'all want to call up. I'm gonna leave the number. I'll leave the number for y'all if y'all want to call up. The Cash App is at the top. Y'all can tap in with me. We're gonna rock out. We're gonna rock out. All right. Let me finish this for you, man. This is Tony Busby right here, y'all.
I don't know why that is, but that's what the numbers show.
And based on the volume of claims you're getting, does that mean that these widespread rumors about Diddy's sexuality are likely to be true?
Yeah, I won't comment on that. I can only comment on the allegations that are being made, that will be made in a public filing. And I'll let people draw their own conclusions, but I will say that 50% of the alleged victims are in fact male. And that includes the minors that were minors at the time of the allegations.
I mean, it's truly shocking, some of these statistics you're giving. In relation to tapes or videos and stuff that you've been told about what's come into your possession, have you seen material, evidential material, which in your estimation as a lawyer could cross the line into criminal activity?
You know, that's a difficult question. You know, as most of your viewers know, the standard of proof in a civil case versus a criminal case is very different. In a criminal case, you have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why the federal authorities, you know, they typically won't bring a case unless it's rock solid. And I'm sure they talked to a lot of people. They collected a lot of evidence. And, you know, from all of that, there's only 3 counts. The civil system is, the standard of proof is preponderance of the evidence. Well, I like to describe it when I'm in court as more likely than not. And so when you look at these videos and pictures and bottles of oil that I've received and other things that we've been given, you know, the piece of evidence, the piece of physical evidence or the video in and of itself doesn't really prove anything. You know, you see a sexual act being performed on video, but you need a witness or the victim to kind of put this in context. You know, you see some sexual act that was captured by a third party on video. You still have to have somebody to say, okay, that individual who was engaged in that's who that is, and this individual who was engaged in that was drugged, you know, and so that people are very interested into what do you have on video and what do you have as by way of evidence. And ultimately, in these kinds of cases, it ultimately comes down to he said, she said. That's it every single time, or he said, he said. And so the most important thing is the credibility of the victim. And typically, in these cases, the defense is always the same. When you bring these kinds of allegations against someone, the first defense is always attack the victim, try to destroy the credibility of the victim. And what I'm looking for is to make sure that the victim, that I have the evidence to put the victim in the room with the alleged perpetrator. And then I try to collect witnesses and other data to corroborate what occurred. But ultimately, it comes down to the credibility of the victim and the credibility of the alleged perpetrator. And that's why hopefully we do a very good job on the front end and make it clear to these people who are calling in that make these allegations that, look, ultimately, you'll have to testify publicly in front of a jury in an open court and tell your story, and you'll be cross-examined, and your name will be known. And that helps me, you know, do the fact checking that we need to do to make sure that we're only bringing those claims that we believe are most credible. And unfortunately, sometimes people with real claims, real legitimate claims, you know, it makes it difficult for them to even pursue these.
Right.
And when you feather in the fact that in many of these cases, the allegation is that the individual was drugged, it makes it even more difficult because this particular drug, this liquid G, they call it, which is basically a date rape drug, you know, it almost wipes your memory. So, you know, it's a Herculean task with this many people making these types of claims, but just if they were just one claim, it's difficult enough. So this is a challenge. I think we're on the right side of this, and we're going to pursue these as aggressively as the court system will allow. And
finally, Mr. Busby, how long have you been a lawyer?
Coming up on 30 years.
Have you ever been involved in anything on this scale?
You know, you know, when the BP Horizon explosion occurred and that vessel sank, we had, you know, obviously thousands of clients. I dealt with the Deshaun Watson cases, obviously not of this scope, but, you know, there was a lot of media attention, but certainly nothing like this. You know, I think, you know, I didn't just fall off the turnip truck. I've been around for a while. Even I was very surprised about the scope of this and the amount of people stepping forward who said they were victimized based upon conduct either performed by or orchestrated by Sean Combs.
Yo, shout out to Wesley Rudd.
Tony Busby.
Shout out to
thank you very much indeed. I appreciate you joining me.
Man, shout out to Wesley Rudd. He said, "Why y'all let them get away with this shit?" Yo, it's wild, man, that all of this is happening, man. It's just crazy, man. It's just really bugged out. It's really bugged out, man. But yeah, man, it's crazy, man. But yeah, man, tap in. Cash App is up top. If y'all want to call up, pull up. Let's chop it up. The number's up there. And at the top of the screen, I got the link pinned. If y'all want to join the stream, y'all pull up, man. Let's talk about it, because this is ongoing. Like, we're gonna be dealing with this case is gonna be going on. Just this one right here, just this case in New York is gonna be going on probably for like another 2 or 3 years. So this is gonna be like every week, every month news. So we might as well get into the nitty gritty. And number two, once again, he got more lawyers that are in the UK talking to victims out there. So if y'all want to call up, the number's at the top, 845-445-7868. If y'all would like to donate, the Cash App is up at the top. Let's keep it going, y'all. Salute. Make sure y'all hit the like button, comment, subscribe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Well, joining me now is the producer, director, and hip-hop documentarian, Choke No Joke, the former federal prosecutor, Andrew Cherkasky, and the uncensored contributor, Esther Krakow. Esther, we've been sitting there. My jaw would have been dropping if I wasn't doing the interview. Your jaw was dropping about what we were hearing there. Some real extraordinary detail about this Houston lawyer's 120 cases.
Yeah.
What struck you from what you just heard?
I think the most shocking thing, and you saw my jaw drop when he said there are just as many men that came forward as women, and that actually it looked like the systemic abuse of men started really to ramp up in 2015. And I can't believe it. This is a complete monster, not because of the gender of his victims, but because clearly he had no limits.
None.
And I would actually, say that with regards to what his mother said, the statement that she released, she's clearly in denial, right? Because you can't
like most parents would
this
be.
wave of sort of people coming forward and this much evidence, even from the Cassie video, and still say that your son is
that's interesting.
That's
because,
bizarre.
If I hadn't seen that video, I've always taken the view with all of these things, particularly since the whole Me Too thing blew up. You've got to wait for justice to be carried out. You've got to see due process take place. I think it's so important. But when I saw that video, when I saw what Diddy was actually capable of in plain sight in a hotel corridor with this girl that he was just beating up, that was so shocking that I thought wow, this guy, A, he's not the person I met several times, who was very charming and nice. He's somebody very different. And B, he's probably capable of pretty much anything.
Well, you know what made it worse? The apology video afterwards, where he didn't mention Cassie's name once.
No.
He sat there and pontificated about how he sought
It wasn't
help,
an apology, was it? It was more of I'm in the shit here. I need to get out of it.
Well, yeah,
right?
And it was just horrendous. And I think his mother is quite clearly in denial. I think on some deep level, she knows that this is a product of a household that she and I'm assuming his father ran. I never really think that people who are predators on that level just do it because somehow they get power and they can get away with it. You really have to have a mentality, a psychology that's imbued in you from a young age. He either grew up in an environment where respecting people, particularly women, was just not a thing, or he was entitled and raised with this idea that actually if you amass enough power, you can get away with systemically abusing people. And I think we actually need to look at the households that produce a lot of these predators, a lot of these serial rapists and sexual assaulters, than just looking at them as individuals who decided to go rogue. It's much more systemic than that.
Let me bring in, you were part of Diddy's entourage at a commercial event a year ago where he was welcomed like a king by fans and industry people. We've got some mulay of that. This is Diddy as we knew him before the scandal erupted. It was actually just before the video got leaked as well to CNN of him beating up his then girlfriend at the time. Are you as stunned as everybody else, Choke No Joke, about what's happened here to Diddy?
First of all, let me say hello to you, Piers Morgan. I am surprised at a lot of the allegations, but
Yo, I want to show y'all a video of Rosie O'Donnell saying a joke almost 15 to 20 years ago, saying Diddy 5 to 10, and then maybe he can sing. I want y'all to listen to this joke. I uploaded it to my Instagram. Got 16,000 views so far, but I just want y'all to hear this real quick.
And he can really sing. Oops! Nominees this year. Lauryn Hill's got 4, TLC's got 8, and Sean Combs 5 to 10. And he can really sing. Oops!
I guess it's not going to play the audio. All right, whatever. Let me go back here.
But I want to correct you. I wasn't a part of his entourage. I was there independently, documenting as I do. And
I see. Yeah.
I know him from the past. So
if you're just now coming in, please hit the like button, send me a comment, and or subscribe. If you like to join the stream, whether you want to call up, the number's at the top. If you would like to join the actual stream and come on and ask questions or give your opinion on what's going on with Puffy, click the link at the top for StreamYard. Open up your phone, your computer, or your iPad, tablet, and you can join the stream as well. But I do ask, please comment, like, subscribe. All right? One of them. If you don't want to do all three, do one of them. I appreciate y'all. We're going to keep going. And if y'all have questions, please feel free to ask. Because, you know what I mean? I'm a simple guy.
yeah, I was there to document the revolt.
But you have attended, unless I'm mistaken, you have attended these freak-off parties at the invitation of Diddy on occasion. And there was one party, you said, where Diddy tried to come on to you and looked at him like he was Beyonce in a bikini, you said. You were invited by Diddy personally at an industry after party. He said there were also women there who were known in industry to be gay and so on. I mean, just when you say you're not shocked
all right, let me clear that up because you like mashing a bunch of stuff in, together. All right, one, it wasn't a freak off party. Well, it may have been. I'm not sure because I didn't go inside. But it was and I wasn't invited by him. I was actually with Little Kim and Hillary Weston, who was Little Kim's manager at the time. And we had went to the BET Awards, and then we went to an after party. At the after party is when Diddy or Sean Combs invited Kim to meet us at the CEO Steve Rifkin's house. When we went to Steve Rifkin's house, which would be that after party, I was at that house that's where Diddy came on to me at. And there was a lot of people there, but I was on the outside, the back porch of the house. I never went inside.
Okay.
So whatever went on inside, I didn't get to see.
And when you say Diddy,
but he did come on to me.
Yeah, I mean, so tell me about that. I mean, what happened?
As far as what?
Him coming on to you.
He just made a pass at me, and I denied it all with looks, and that was it.
How did you respond?
And that wasn't it. You know, once I realized that he was hitting on me, and I looked at my environment and realized that most of the people there were gay or bisexual, then I caught on to where we were at, and I went and I grabbed Hillary Weston and I pulled her outside and I told her, hey, Diddy's over here hitting on me. Go get Little Kim. We are leaving. And that's what we did.
Because there have been a lot of rumors about Diddy's sexuality. And I think it's only relevant in the sense that the lawyer I just spoke to in Texas says that half of the victims that he's representing are male, which would suggest here that, and they're all connected in some way to Diddy, obviously claims at this stage, but that would certainly suggest that Diddy is at very least bisexual.
Yo,
I would believe.
And look, I'll be honest with you. I remember we're in 2024. In 2009, I was in Collins Box. If anybody knows where Collins is, Collins Special Housing Unit, Shoot 200. I was in Collins Box, 2009 summer. I read Corinne Steffen's book, which was a good book, and I also read Wendy Williams' book. Those are one of the two books. Those are two of the books that I've read through that 2009 summer when I was in the Shoot 200. And I remember in Wendy Williams' book, she mentioned how he got her fired on the air. She also mentioned that there was a figure in hip hop who was a gay male who was basically doing things behind the scene with men and using his power to basically run the industry. And then when I read Corinne Steffen's book, she mentioned how her and Exhibit went to a party. They were in the party, sort of kind of like how Choke said, they were chilling, dancing, and then like Exhibit kind of like was like, "Yo, do you notice something?" And then she looked around. She was like, "Yeah, it's a lot of dudes in here. Like, where the girls at?" And they both looked around and was like, "Oh, we're in a gay club." So then when they looked like into the crowd, they saw Diddy with two dudes, one dude behind him, one dude in front of him dancing. They walk up to him, "Hey Puff, how you doing? We here," because he invited them to come. Um, and he just kept dancing. He didn't even care. They didn't pay him no mind. He didn't pay him no mind. So this is another thing too. A lot of these men are afraid to come out about their sexuality because of the fact that when they do come out, a lot of straight women are not gonna want to deal with them. And I feel like honestly, if these dudes were to just come out and be real, a lot of things would change. A lot of people wouldn't be their fans. A lot of women wouldn't want to have posters of them or go to their concerts or support them. A lot of real women who were raised by real men will not support what is going on in the music industry if these dudes were to just come out and claim their sexuality. You understand what I'm saying? Why do you think Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade are going through what they're going through? Because in the beginning, Gabrielle Union knew that Dwayne Wade was bisexual, and she still chose to deal with Dwayne Wade. And now look, she wants nothing to do with him because she thought that she was going to be okay with it. So then what happens in that whole process? She takes the son or the kids away from the real mom, right? Cuts off her privileges, and then she winds up having the young boy go and change his whole image and makeup just so he can get a contract with who? Disney. Come on, man. Y'all got to pay attention, man. Pay attention. Hit the like button, please. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's having a good day. It's 1:53 p.m. over here on the East Coast. New Jersey, New York time. Uh, where's everybody? Where's everybody at? Shout out your city. Shout out your state. Comment, like, subscribe. I hope everybody is doing good. You know what I mean? Love, life, and loyalty is the motto. I hope y'all are all doing good and staying safe. Word. Let's continue. Let's continue, y'all. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to comment. Call up 845-445-7868. Hit the Cash App. The Cash App's up there. And if y'all want to join the stream with me, to watch the content with me, and to comment on it together, feel free to hit that link at the top of the video. It's right there. I pinned it for y'all.
Believe that to be true. From him passing on to me, a straight man don't hit on a straight man. But can I say one thing in regards to your last guest?
Yeah,
that was saying that his mother's in denial. I don't think that's a fair statement for her to say, and I don't like the fact that she said he was raised in a household with a mother and father and blah blah blah. Because I'm a guy that grew up in the projects. My mother always made sure I did right. My father always made sure I did right. But when I got on outside of the door of the other threshold, the streets told me different. And I did a lot of things that my mother couldn't even fathom today that I did. So when she says that, you know, his mother's in denial or she may be part of the reason for his behavior, a lot of our behavior comes from being in the street and
Hold on, I think you misunderstood
and I don't
what I
think
was
that
saying.
was a fair statement.
I think you misunderstood what I was saying. First of all, of course, individuals are responsible for their own actions, but individuals are not dug up from the ground or hatched from eggs. They're raised in homes. They're raised with values and cultures. I'm not blaming his mother in any way, shape, or form, but any parent whose child is accused of these sorts of crimes will undoubtedly just reflect and think, is there anything that I could have done? That's all I was insinuating. And also, she is in denial because we've all seen that Cassie video. Someone who is capable of treating Cassie like that, dragging her around like a rag doll. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be shocked when allegations of this kind come forward, particularly with the stuff like 1,000 bottles of baby oil in his home. First of all, what is he doing with all of that? And secondly, those poor babies that have been deprived of their moisturizer, right? At some point, if you're looking at it objectively, you cannot be surprised after that Cassie video came out that he is also.
She said, poor babies who were deprived of their moisturizer. Yo, they playing games with Puff. Hit the like button, y'all. Salute to everybody in the room. Shout out to all of y'all. Y'all are a blessing. I hope everybody's having a good day. Let's chop it up, man. If y'all want to call up 845-445-7868. Y'all can text that number as well. If y'all do, I'll shout you out. If you even want to text a number, comment, and make sure y'all subscribe, man. We here, man.
Capable of doing the things that are being alleged against him. That's not to blame his mother. That is to say that if you're looking at this objectively, which of course she won't be able to because it's her son, you have to believe there's an element of denial there. That's not to say that people who grew up in disadvantaged situations
here's the truth.
will always turn out this way.
The truth is we don't know, right? We don't know. I think it's perfectly possible, as Choke just said, that you can be one thing with your parents,
Well, yeah.
but if you then get out on the streets and you get led down various bad places, you could be something which maybe you're the one in denial to your parents.
Right.
I can absolutely believe that to be
Right.
but the truth is we don't know. But look, she won't be the first and won't be the last mother to defend the indefensible with her son. Let me bring in Andrew here. You're a former federal prosecutor. We've heard from a civil case lawyer who's got 120 civil actions. And I said to him, has he seen stuff that passes the bar of criminality? It's very hard to say because you need to go through the whole process of building a criminal case. From everything you're seeing about this case, do you think that there is any doubt that P. Diddy is going to end up going to prison for a long time?
There's a mountain of evidence against him, and the federal prosecutors who brought this case, especially in the complex way that they did, are sure to get convictions along the way. I think that their charge sheet is indicative of years and years of evidence that they have deeply investigated at this point that will lead to undoubtedly convictions, and that will lead to a significant amount of jail time. That said, there are going to be battles along the way, both in the criminal realm as well as the civil realm, because the devil is often in the details. So the prosecutors, as well as the civil attorneys, are going to have to prove their case. And in most of the situations, they're going to have to prove it on kind of a day in, day out basis. On this date, this specific thing happened. The general idea that there were orgies that happened, or the general idea that drugs may have been present, or some people did drugs. Some people had feelings like if they didn't do this, they wouldn't be able to advance. Some of that stuff is not going to actually raise the charges with sufficient proof to prove either in the criminal realm or the civil realm. They're really going to have to get those criminalized elements, or in the civil case, things that look like criminal actions, the kind of removal of consent, or the pushing through these acts without consent present. And when you see over 100 people in a civil lawsuit,
Right.
Certainly there is concern that people are jumping on a bandwagon. Perhaps they were present and they're just saying that something non-consensual happened in one of those situations. So each of those cases are going to have to be tested. And I think the final point on, especially with Mr. Busby speaking earlier, saying that there are others that might be involved. I think the feds are going to be looking at all of those people involved and kind of giving them an option. Were you a victim? Are you somebody who we can have say something against Diddy? Or is this something where you're part of the conspiracy and we're going to add charges? Similar in the civil case, he's not naming names. Is he trying to reach hush money kind of settlements here? I think that as he's pushing forward the narrative that there were many people involved, we want to hear those names, and we want to be assured that there's not hush money agreements going on, and that he's not simply dangling the idea that he's going to drop these names before he has the opportunity to reach a settlement.
Yeah, I mean, on Fox News, their lawyer Brian Claypool said if Combs doesn't testify in this case, he's dead on arrival. Would you concur with that?
Testimony is something that I guess it has only some value to it, because of course he's going to deny it if he were to testify. I think what the case really comes down to is the corroborating evidence. It is difficult when an alleged victim goes in and simply testifies that this happened to me. Any case, whether it's criminal or civil, juries want some sort of corroboration. They want the feeling from the alleged victim that it happened and that it's reliable, but they want to look at that surrounding information. So Are there videos that show it? And how can you interpret the different things that are in the video? What does the timeline look like, the text messages, the conversation surrounding the events? So it's all going to come down to corroboration on those individual cases. As I said, the devil.
Now this is heavy. Let me get back up in here because we definitely have to talk about. We gotta talk about Kim. We definitely got to talk about this. Yeah, because honestly, it's a lot going on, man. It's a lot. Let me get this
Devils
video
in the
for y'all.
details are really going to have to prove the nuance of each case.
Yeah. I mean, Chuck, you chronicled the hip hop world for a long time. I can't pretend that I'm massively shocked that the hip hop world is full of guys behaving badly and displaying, at the very, very least, rampant misogyny. I mean, the lyrics are full of it. So there's been a kind of brazen celebration of misogyny for a long time in the hip hop world. Is it really shocking that Diddy and potentially other big names in the hip hop world have been, holding out the carrot of record contracts and stuff?
Safe. She goes to his house, gets the stuff from the safe, and at that point, she says, if anything happens to her, the book will be released along with the tapes. But what I got for you today, my friend, you're getting a treat here. You're getting a scoop that nobody has gotten. I mentioned this on one reel, and it was my most played reel on my entire Instagram. Over 100.
Now, I want y'all to hear the story that this guy is about to tell, how he's had a copy of the memoir or her diary. What he had is a copy of the diary because she wrote it in diary form, but they changed it around when it was published on Amazon. And he had it for almost a year now. So I just want you guys to listen to what he has to say, because what he's saying from the copy that he's reading from is really crazy, much crazier than what is published. Because he did say they changed a lot of words around. So I just want y'all to hear what he says.
Something thousand plays, which for me is pretty big. Like that's a lot more than normal. I'll kind of precurse this. So I'm not going to give the names of how I come into contact with this book, but anybody that knows anything about the Diddy situation, he had a longtime girlfriend, Kim Porter. Now, he had a few kids with her. They had a long running relationship, and then they did separate. Now, it's been long rumored that she was writing like a diary. I don't necessarily know if I would call it a book, but a diary of events that took place throughout their relationship. And then she mysteriously passed away due to pneumonia. As I was saying, it's been long rumored that she was writing a tell-all book, or at least a memoir, detailing her tumultuous life with P. Diddy and some of his extracurricular activities. I read it. I was actually out of town, so I took it with me, and I'm reading it on the plane. And it's not a lot, which tends to put a little bit of validity towards it. Was like her memoirs. It wasn't actually a full-blown book. This is not a 300-page book by any means. It more or less looked like a diary that was kind of put together in sequential order. And it was about 45 pages long. And I read it, and I'm just like, wow. And now I grew up. P. Diddy was hot when I grew up. Like Bad Boy was hot. Tupac. I mean, those two were the top in the game. Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls, Tupac. So Puff Daddy was in the limelight everywhere, and he, stayed there for a good deal of time. And then he branched out and done other things with Ciroc and Sean John. So it's not somebody that I was completely, unaware of, but the things that were talked about in that book, I was just like, there's no way he done all this. And we're going to talk about a few things in there, because now, like, the more time has went by. I read this book in April. Yeah.
The hold on, let's see. The Southern District of New York would beg to differ.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
That a lot more, that book, that diary that you read is looking more and more credible now.
Yes, it definitely is more and more credible. And this is just one woman's accounts, as we'll go through when we get into the, all the charges against him. There's multiple women, multiple crimes, multiple things that's going on that he's getting charged with. Very serious stuff. And this is just one account, one lady. Now, and I'm going to just talk about a few of the things from this book, because there's a lot of stuff in there. Some very prominent people in the music business.
I'm waiting for him to get to the part to talk about the relationship between Puff and Tupac, the relationship between Pac and Kim Porter, and the relationship with Pac and Faith. It's a lot, y'all. It's a lot.
Her name. I'm not going to talk about every single one, but just a few of them. She says when she first meets Diddy that they, of course, began at some point in time to engage in some activity. And which is fine. I mean, by God, go right ahead. Yeah.
He's not shy, that's for sure.
No, because what his idea of a good time is he wants her to use extra large toys and different things on him to the point to where he's, bleeding. It seems a little painful to me. I don't know. I wouldn't consider that what I would, put in the classification as a pleasurable experience, but to him it was. And I think you can get there. I think at a point in time when you have money and stuff like that, I'm not saying I'll ever be there, but I think it's possible. When you have money and you have girls, I think, you probably go to one girl, then two girls, then three girls, then this, then that. I think you eventually have to get to where that really, really, really far out there is what satisfies the regular craving for you. I think that's a thing. My opinion, I could be wrong. It's not my thing, but I think it is a thing for some people. And she said that she was so weirded out by this experience that she didn't want to talk to him anymore. And obviously she knew who he was. It was Diddy. But I mean, she was just like, this is pretty strange. I'm not going, it's too much. And he pursued her for a while, but they met up at a club and he was like, I was just kind of a little out there and I'm sorry. And I'd really like to give it another chance. And, they get back together. And she alludes in there that he had affairs with people like Mary J. Blige, and that she also was having, it was pretty much an open relationship. They were both doing their own thing, which is, I think, in Hollywood and that industry is probably pretty common.
Right.
One of the bigger ones was, and this is the short that we, that I discussed on the show, was the Tupac situation. Now, she claims in this book to have been with Tupac solo at another point in time. Now, before all the bad blood between East Coast, West Coast, and before everybody wanted to, take each other out, all these guys are friends. Now, there's some pictures in this book of people hanging out in the same location, Snoop, Diddy, etc. And a lot of these, I mean, there's a famous, I forget right off where it's at, but I mean, Pac and Biggie are together rapping at like some concert. It's a famous concert where they get up there and freestyle. So there was a point in time where they all got along. And she said they're at Diddy's home and, they're all hanging out, chilling. And she's like, she's been with Pac solo. And Diddy kind of brings it up like, hey, we've all been with each other, but we've never been with each other together. I've been with Kim, you've been with Kim, but we've never been with Kim together. And almost kind of lays out a competition as to one goes first and sees how long it takes to get Kim to climax.
Right.
And Pac is, according to her words, and I want to make sure people understand this. I'm reading from this book. I'm not saying this is true. I wasn't there. I wasn't hiding in the closet. Oh, Hollywood wasn't nowhere around there. Okay. I'm going off the book. She says that Pac is immediately like, F that, F this, F that, I'm not feeling that or whatever. and he just like basically cusses Diddy out and leaves. So this sends Diddy into a little bit of a tizzy. He's obviously upset. I don't know whether he's worried that, you know, Pac could spill the beans on what he's into or what. The next day, she says she walks in on a conversation that was had between Pac and a guy by the name of Jimmy Henchman, and that it was an orchestrated setup for Tupac to be shot, which was the shooting that happened at Quad 6 Studios the first time Pac got shot a number of times. Now, I know people are going to say it wasn't Jimmy Henchman, it was this person, or it was that person, or it was Haitian Jack, or it was for this reason. I'm not saying this was exactly what happened. Again, I'm just reading from this book. Now, if you watch that Tupac and Biggie, I don't know if I actually ever watched the Tupac movie, but I know there was a show, and he is going to the studio in New York, allegedly. Big sees him from the street. They wave him up.
Okay, they saying that he's expected in court, y'all. They saying he's expected in court.
Expected to return to court. The music mogul's facing federal charges of racketeering and sex trafficking. Combs has been in a New York City jail since last month when his request for bond was denied twice. ABC News legal contributor, trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer joins me now for more on this. Brian, what can we expect to happen in court?
So Dan, in court, we're expecting the parties with their new attorneys to be there to make the arguments not only that Sean Combs should be released, arguing that the bail was denied inappropriately in the past, but also just a scheduling of the case. They're looking to move forward in this case by saying what evidence the defense is likely to receive, what, if any, motions should be filed in the coming days. It's basically an opportunity for both parties to kind of get the ball rolling towards an inevitable trial.
Brian, Combs also hired a new defense attorney. What more do you know about him?
Yeah, so Anthony, or Tony Rico, as many people know him, is kind of like the godfather of federal defense, both in terms of his death penalty work. I think he's done over 50 death penalty cases across the country, as well as being well known as a Harlem native and working in the Southern District of New York. To give you some context, I'll say this. I probably would say that I'm a fairly decent defense attorney. I have a pretty decent record when it comes to trials and whatnot. The people that I look up to as being great defense attorneys, they look up to Tony Rico as being great themselves. And so he's at a different level, I think, when it comes to defense. I'm not saying that just because he's on the team, Sean Combs is going to be found not guilty, but this is probably one of the strongest people to be able to defend him in a case like this.
And Brian, last week, a Texas attorney said he's representing 120 alleged victims, both men and women, who claim Combs sexually assaulted them. So how could these lawsuits impact the criminal case?
So Tony Busby, the attorney you were talking about, brought those cases, and he said that I think over 3,000 people had reached out to him, but he's only representing 120. He himself says that a number of those cases need to be vetted. So I think what we're going to see is those claims get vetted. We'll see what is strong, what is not, and what is not a claim in of itself altogether. But if those sources, if those alleged victims do have strong corroborating information or new facts, we could potentially see more witnesses in a federal case, other federal cases across the country, as Tony Busby says, that these claims come out of Georgia and Florida and other states. But we could also see potentially a superseding indictment where there would be more charges and more alleged victims in the Sean Combs case out of the Southern District of New York.
All right, Brian Buckmeyer, thank you. And be sure to watch The Secret Life of Diddy, a special edition of 2020 tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern on ABC and streaming on Hulu tomorrow.
Sheesh.
As Sean Combs fights once again for pretrial release from a New York detention center pending trial.
Listen, when I tell you, like, it's quiet for him because the media is all over it. Like, white media is on it. They're not letting up. They're not. They're not letting up on him, man. It's looking crazy, man. Please, if you just joining, comment, like, subscribe. If you want to call up. Cash App is at the top if you want to donate. And yeah, if you want to join the stream, it's pinned to the top of the video, man. So join in, man. It's a wild situation right now for Diddy, man. Wild situation. Where is this video? There's a video I'm trying to find for y'all where they break down Oh, Jennifer Lopez.
That came about and why that
Right.
was. I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details as to how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations. Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. I should leave it there.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given that he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy that involves members of his companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, thank you, everyone.
What part of this business empire is
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill
trial on federal sex trafficking and racketeering charges, we take a deep dive into the growing list of high-profile celebrities charged with sexual misconduct. We start with Harvey Weinstein.
Look how many outlets. Listen, it's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, hundreds of outlets. We're not going to say just hundreds of outlets are covering the Diddy case. Hundreds of outlets. This is crazy.
In April, the New York Court of Appeals overturned Weinstein's 2020 rape and sexual assault conviction and ordered a new trial. A retrial is set for November. Weinstein maintains his innocence and that all sexual encounters were consensual. Harvey Weinstein, once a Hollywood powerhouse, was accused by some 80 women, including Ashley Judd, of sexual assault and prosecuted in New York and California. He was acquitted of a 2010 sexual battery allegation, but a mistrial was declared for 2 other accusers. In 2020, he was convicted of rape and sexual assault, though New York's highest court later overturned his 23-year sentence.
This today is an act of institutional betrayal.
His defense attorney, Arthur Aidala.
So the Court of Appeals deserves a tremendous amount of credit for doing this based on the law, not based on opinion polls.
Weinstein's legal troubles were far from over. In 2022, he was convicted of rape and assault in Los Angeles and recently indicted on new charges in New York, where he remains behind bars. Weinstein maintains all sexual encounters were consensual.
I believe I can fly.
R&B singer R. Kelly was sentenced in federal court in New York and Chicago for sexually abusing underage girls and recording it. In New York, the I Believe I Can Fly singer was sentenced to 30 years on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, followed by a 20-year sentence for child pornography and enticement charges in Chicago. The 2 men who once teamed up for the hit song Satisfy You now face similar accusations. Like Kelly, Diddy is being held on sex trafficking and racketeering charges. Diddy is being held in the same jail as Kelly once was, Brooklyn's troubled Metropolitan Detention Center. Unlike Kelly, Diddy is also charged with transporting individuals for prostitution.
Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires.
Reportedly drugging his victims for compliance. Prosecutors report Diddy held private freak-offs where victims were drugged, beaten, and forced to participate while he recorded and masturbated. Diddy's attorney.
He's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers. And I expect a long battle with a good result for Mr. Combs.
Diddy faces more than 130 lawsuits, mostly by Houston attorney Tony Busby.
So notice that, right? Notice that, right? You hear facing, what do you say? Diddy is facing 130 lawsuits. You see how it went from 50, it went from 50 to 100 to then it went back. Now it's back. Now it's up to 100 and 120, and then they say 130. So they're saying all of this stuff. The numbers are just constantly increasing. Now I'm hearing 150 plus victims, plus the team of lawyers that's in the UK. So now I'm saying to myself, well, damn, if we got 130 over here, and there's a team of lawyers in the UK, and now I'm also seeing reports of 150 or more, what? Are we going to be in the 200s by the time they finish just with this one? And then we still got to deal with all the other. Man, listen, it's quiet for him. It's quiet for him.
Our youngest victim at the time of the occurrence was 9 years old. We have an individual who was 14 years old.
Now, Diddy is expected to appear in a federal courthouse tomorrow on racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution charges. His attorney says he maintains his innocence and is eager to prove his case. Houston attorney Tony Busby, who represents more than 120 accused victims, says he plans to start filing lawsuits this week against Diddy and the music mogul's cohorts. Now, meanwhile, the Supreme Court declined R. Kelly's appeal on Monday, which means the singer will remain behind bars.
Long little battle ahead for Diddy.
Now check this one out, y'all. We're gonna do this one real quick. I want y'all to look at this, and then I'm going to I'm gonna slide out for a little bit. But yeah, I just want y'all to look at this one real quick. This one is crazy too. This is absolutely crazy. Tupac's family investigated.
Mogul, who is facing RICO charges in New York, Sean P. Diddy Combs. Court TV has just confirmed that the family of Tupac Shakur is investigating a potential link between the murder of Tupac and Sean Diddy Combs. This coming from attorney Alex Spiro, who represents Tupac's family. Now, this investigation had been previously reported by unnamed sources, but earlier today, Spiro confirmed to our Court TV team that he and a team of investigators has been hired.
Sean Combs allegedly had business dealings with Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, who will go on trial next March for the murder of Tupac. This was back in 1996. Some have speculated that Diddy ordered Tupac's death. That, of course, is just a theory at this point, and we are monitoring the developments in both the Tupac murder trial and the federal indictment of Sean Diddy Combs. So a lot of information to come on that one.
In the case that continues to roll on, let's bring in National Trial Attorney Michael Schaefer just to talk about this new news of an investigative team that is been hired by Tupac's family. We don't have more details about what they found so far and exactly what avenues they are taking to do that, but what does that say to you? What do you think is happening, and how serious is this when someone hires an investigative team in a murder trial that's being handled by authorities, but this is a private entity requesting this?
Julia, I always say, landslides don't happen slowly. Right? You'll be standing on the side of a mountain admiring its beauty and glamour, and then 1 second later, you're buried in mud, right? This does not shock me. This does not surprise me. I can promise you this is not the last thing that we find out about people investigating Diddy and what he's done. This is not the first. We know of an attorney now who represents 100.
And shout out to Carl Massey. He said Oprah helped them recruit their underage. Right. And that part. All right, y'all. I've been on here for about an hour. I'm about to go take care of a few things. I will definitely be back later on. Shout out to everybody who came on, watched, tapped in for a few, and you stayed the whole way or left, came back, or whatever. Shout out to all of y'all. Appreciate y'all. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be back. We're gonna do this again later on. One.
Battlethon motherfuckers. If you ain't been on Battlethon, use a motherfucking lane. Nigga, I'm here to tell you that right now. I'm from the D and I came to New York to get on Battlethon. So any of you niggas who really call yourself doing this shit and ain't been on Battlethon, you a motherfucking lame. My nigga, flat the fuck out. Get you a Battlethon interview, my nigga, let some niggas hear you talk some real shit, my nigga. You feel me? Easy. 100.